the last episode, we told your sort of superhero origin story of going from basically Men's Wearhouse to becoming a running influencer.
Yeah.
And how all that happened. And in the time between that interview and now, you've been busy writing your first book, which is called Slow AF Run Club, the ultimate guide for anyone who wants to run. So I want to talk a little bit about that process and obviously talk about what's in the book.
Okay.
But before we get into all of that, can you just give the listeners a brief synopsis of that journey from where you started and where you are now?
Yeah, man. One of the things I just always like to say is that my journey, people may know me from running, but my journey of overcoming obstacles and in face of adversity has always been there, man. I grew up on the east side of Detroit. I stayed next to a crack house. Before the age of 10, I had two brothers pass on me. And just throughout life, there has always been adversity that I had to overcome over and over again, whether it was losing a football scholarship, getting on academic probation, to where people know me now of being a runner, influencer, or a thought leader, right? So how did I get there? So we fast forward through all of this, and I'm working at Men's Wearhouse. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it. I'm in a suit 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm in hard bottom dress shoes. I'm walking on a carpet floor that's wrapped in concrete, and I developed some hip issues. I go see a orthopedic surgeon, and he tells me, I know what's wrong with you. We have this discussion, and he's like, you're fat. You need to lose weight or you're going to die. Being the man that I am, you're just not going to talk to me any type of way. So we have this argument, this discussion. I tell him I'm going to run a marathon. He laughs at me and tells me that's the most dumbest thing he heard in all of his years of practicing medicine. Being the type of guy I am, I wanted to put hands on him, but you know what Michelle Obama say? When they go low, you're supposed to go high. So yeah, I just got up out of there. And on my way home, I bought some running shoes and got on the treadmill, failed miserably, couldn't run longer than 15 seconds. And that was kind of my journey. I started there, continued to go back day after day until I got better. And I eventually ran my first marathon within about 18 months of meeting that doctor, and hasn't stopped running since then. I've ran 8 marathons, 100 other different distances. I've amassed this community called the Slow AF Run Club that has about 10,000 members worldwide. And you may have seen me on covers of Runner's World or somewhere else.
That's awesome, man. All right. So on our first interview, you talked about how whenever you would weigh yourself, the scale would go to the maximum, which was like 350 or something like that. So you never quite knew how much you weighed. Exactly. And in your most recent work, you talk about how running is not necessarily a weight loss journey. So what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is that when it comes to running or just physical activity in general, right? Diet culture will make it feel like if you're not exercising to get rock hard abs or a 6-pack or pecs or whatever, your exercise and your fitness journey is futile. What you're doing does not matter if you're not going to try to attain those specific goals. And my message of saying like, this is not a weight loss journey is just saying that there's so much benefits that comes from being regularly physically active, that why are we regulating it just to a number on the scale? You know, by being regularly physically active, you know, heart rate, blood pressure, A1Cs, cholesterol, all those things that they typically blame fat people when they're like, oh, you need to lose weight and exercise because you need to do all these things to get all these things done. If you exercise and not lose weight, those comorbidities or risk factors are still affected, and they're still affected in a positive way. So like my journey is to let people know that you should be physically active regardless. And if you don't lose weight, it's okay because there's still so many other benefits that comes along with it.
Is that something that you personally would like to experience, though, the weight loss and all of that, a physical transformation, or have you sort of transcended that and you're just about the lifestyle?
Like I've been on that journey, man. I've been on that pony. I've lost nearly 100 pounds. I've gained it back. I've yo-yo back and forth. And I think for me, like I've just transcended that on the fact of like, I just like being active. I like to run. I like to work out. And I don't like the person I am when I am constantly looking at the scale and that be the outcome that I'm looking for. So I've just transcended that. And if,
Because what's
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, what's cool about your community you started, the Slow Way Up, it's not called the Fat People's Run Club
Right,
or the Overweight Run Club. It's just people who don't run as for whatever reason.
right.
You're not running as fast as the other people because they're all a whole host of issues that come with being slow when you're joining these run clubs. And you had an experience, you had several experiences with this that have helped, I feel like, shape your perspective in this and give you an extra layer of compassion for all runners. And you said that this book is for anybody who wants to run. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those experiences. We can start wherever. We can start with the San Francisco Run Club that advertised they were open to everyone, or we can start with the philosophy of don't get on the bus, or whatever, wherever you want to start.
Oh man, well, don't get off my bus. Don't get on the bus is my favorite story.
Okay, let's talk
It,
about that.
it's one of the stories that my friend Alton still calls me today and be like, yo, man, I was just remembering like that dude really asked you to get on that bus. So let's talk about it. Detroit Marathon, my first marathon, I went through all of the hardship of training. I did it, right? And I get to the start line. I started to run this race. Around mile 18, this is things start to get a little dicey for me, right? The voices are starting to get to me. I've been on my feet. I'm starting to get tired. Parts of my body that I didn't expect to hurt was hurting. Like I'm running a marathon. Like, why are my teeth hurting? So I am interacting with this guy, and I'm trying to give him words of encouragement. Truthfully, it's words of encouragement that I wish somebody would have just gave me. So I'm like, come on, dude, you got this. We can do this together. Like, we got this, brother. Like, we got this. We in this bad boy together. We in the struggle. And he's
Meanwhile, you're
like,
at your wall. You're at your wall. You're like trying to encourage him
yeah,
to keep going because that's a way of talking to yourself.
yeah. So it's a way of talking to myself, and I'm trying to encourage somebody else to encourage myself. And he's like, I'm done. So he gets on this sag wagon, right? He gets on this bus, and mile after mile, this bus would come alongside of me and be like, "Hey, big man, you want to ride to the finish line?" And at first, I thought it was just a nicety. So I'm like, "No, I'm good." But mile after mile, mile 20, he came. Mile 21, he came. "Hey, big man, you want to ride to the finish line? You want to ride to the finish line?" And one of the things I started to notice was he wasn't stopping by everybody else. Like he wasn't pulling along everybody else that was in front of me. Like he would just stop at me and be like, "Hey man, get on this bus." So I continue to run and I get around like mile 23, maybe 24. And like I'm struggling. I'm struggling to stay on my feet. I'm moving at a slower pace. The voices are getting to me. I got this little angel and devil on my shoulders. I call it my heart and my head. My head is like, yo, the pain will go away. You just get your big ass on this bus. And my heart is like, no, like you got to keep going. You won't be able to get the race medal. Won't call yourself a marathoner. So like this stuff I'm battling with that. And then you got this outside experience of like, hey, big man, like come get on the bus. So all of this comes ahead to about mile 25. I'm less than a mile away from the finish line. And then he comes again and he's like, come on, man, get on this bus. And I'm like, yo, like, why are you telling me to get on this bus? I'm less than a mile away. Like, leave me the fuck alone. And he says, something on the lines of, I can't help that you fat and slow. I'm trying to help your big ass out. What? So we have some words. We have some words because you're just not going to talk to me like that. So we have some words, and he drives off, and I finally finish the race. And I think that this story here is a great metaphor for life, right? Um, we are all going to go through some type of struggle, and we're going to have our own voices that are competing against each other. And then we're also going to have like the outside voices that are also going to try to compete against us as well. And we have to overcome all of that in order to get to our goals.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind for me is, when you have your alarm set on your, I don't know what Android is like, but on the iPhone, there's the alarm. And when it
Uh-huh.
goes off, there's this big ass yellow snooze button. And then the stop is really tiny at the bottom.
Yes.
So it's kind of built in so that you hit snooze, right? Like you have to really be intentional about stopping the alarm. And I feel like life is sort of geared around us continually hitting snooze in one way or the other, snooze on our potential, snooze on our goals, snooze on our dreams. And even when we're like close to the finish line, it's still there. And you have to be, really just focused on getting to that last. I think there's a Zen saying, which is 90% of the way, consider that to be halfway there, or something along those lines. Because that energy to kind of keep going and get over the line, that last little bit is usually, it takes everything out of you. And like you said, your teeth were hurting in that moment. So in the first interview, you talked about going to the doctor for hip pain, him basically saying you're going to die, you saying F you, I'm going to run a marathon. How long was that period of time between that conversation and that first marathon you just got through describing? And what happened with the hip pain? Like, 'cause you're still overweight. So, I mean, how does if an overweight person is hearing something like this, and we're talking morbidly overweight, and they want to take control of their health, what did you learn during that process about how to train for a marathon, or how to know you're ready for a marathon, or should you start with a half marathon, or just start walking around the block, or talk a little bit about your process there?
Absolutely. Like, so it took about 18 months. So I met the doctor of like June, July of 2012. I didn't run that marathon until October 2013. So there's quite a bit of time and quite a bit of stuff that can happen within 18 months, right? So I leave that doctor, I start running. I still had to go to another doctor because I did not get what I needed from that doctor. I did not know what was going on with my hip. So I found another orthopedic surgeon, and he cleared me. He's like, everything's all right. You just need to go to physical therapy. So I'm going through physical therapy and I'm running, right? And I'm not running that much, right? Like, you gotta remember, my first run was 15 seconds. So it ain't like I got up from 15 seconds and then like, bam, I'm running miles. It was literally like 30 seconds here, a minute here, so on and so forth, like still building up. But during that process, I did physical therapy for about 6 to 8 weeks while running. And one of the things that they encouraged me was to run. Like, oh, you want to run? Like, good. Like, let's figure out how to make that happen. Let us know. Run before you come to physical therapy. Let us know how that hip is going. We're going to figure out other exercises to make sure like that hip is strengthened so you can be able to run, right? So I found the right people that were able to um, help with my goals and help facilitate that versus being like, nope, lose weight, die, and that's it. Um, so I started off with a 5K. Started off with couch to 5K. It took me about 10 or so weeks to do that. And on the 12th week of that journey, I ran my first 5K. And that was an amazing journey, right? Um, it, it left me with emotion and feeling of like, holy crap, I am a runner and I can do this. And then from there, we continue to go. I continue to run more 5Ks. I sign up for a 10K, run some bunch of 10Ks, do a half marathon. And that pretty much took care of like that 6 months from like June to December of 2012. Now, January 2013, I was talking to my wife and I was like, hey, think I want to run a race. think I'm gonna run Detroit. Like, I think it'll be a full circle moment. I'm from Detroit. I'd love to run a marathon. And she was like, well, when is the race? I was like, well, let me look it up. And the registration for Detroit Marathon had opened up on that day. So I signed up for the Detroit Marathon, knowing that I had about 10 or so months to train and prepare for that. So throughout that process, it was still running races, running half marathons, and then slowly start to build up doing a marathon training program.
Okay, so what I love about your book is that it takes people literally from scratch. Like you don't have to know anything, and you talk about picking out shoes and joining running clubs and stuff like that. So talk a little bit. Let's go back a little bit more and talk about your first journey. Like you went and bought some shoes after that doctor's visit. Did you buy the right pair of shoes? Did you have to did you have to upgrade those to something else to help support your goal? Like what did you learn about that?
Oh man. So luckily, I didn't know this until like later on down the line. Like I end up going to like one of the best running shoe companies in the United States. Like I went to this there's this chain called Fleet Feet Sports. And that's the running shoe store that I went to. So I went in there and
You just eyeballed it. You were just driving down the
yeah, I was
street
just
and you
driving.
saw
It's
it.
like seeing it, went in there, didn't know nothing about it. And went in there, it's like, yo, I need running shoes. Like I'm at the wall. Imagine like like I was taking it from the standpoint of like, oh, I'm shopping at like Foot Finish Line or Foot Action or like one of those shoes when you picking out a pair of Jordans. You like, give me that pair right there in the black and the size 15. And they was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like that's not how we do this here. Like, tell us about your goals. Tell us about this other stuff. Let me see your shoes. Like, let me see you walk with no shoes on. Get on this treadmill. Like,
Right.
they put me through the whole rigmarole when it comes to picking out a pair of shoes. So I left there with a pair of shoes, insoles, and all types of extra stuff.
Because they could see, okay, this guy, whatever, supernates or pronates, and you need
Right,
support on
right.
your arches or your heels or whatever like that. And that could make a big difference if you're running
Yes,
miles and miles and miles.
big difference. So right off bat, even though I didn't know it, like it was fate, man. It was the universe putting me in that predicament to go to that running shoe store, see it, go there, never been there, and them set me up to
Mhm.
make sure I had the best shoes that I needed for me at that particular moment.
And were you a part of any kind of run clubs when you started doing those 5Ks, or how did you, because 5K for Americans is what, like 3.5 miles or something like that?
3.1
Uh,
miles.
okay. So then how do
Yes.
you say someone's inspired to like start with that? Like where do they go? And again, this is in your book, but so we're just
Okay.
talking about it so that they can get the book for the details.
So like there are 5Ks all over the world, right? All over the nation. And there might be a 5K, if you're listening to this, there might be a 5K in your neighborhood or in your backyard and you just don't know it, right? So the first thing I always say is that try to find a local running shoe store in your area, get fitted right for some good shoes. But also they'll usually have like the posts on like what races or things that's happening in the community. Um, since we have the internet, we also have that great advent as well of just searching 5Ks near me. So like there's a website called Running in the USA that pretty much has all of the races in the United States that's happening. So you can literally go to that website, put in the distance you want to run, put in what month you want to run it, and put it in the location, and it'll give you a running list of all the 5Ks that are in that particular criteria. So that's how I found my first 5K.
But they may hit up against the same issues you hit up against,
Yeah.
which is, we're open to everyone, da 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 da, and then you run slower than everybody else, and you kind of get shamed and bullied for that. So how do you avoid that?
Man, you got to join the Slow F Run Club.
Okay.
You got to join. Look, you got to join the Slow F Run Club. That's the thing about branding, marketing, and things of that sort. A lot of places are gonna like, we're welcoming, and the only way to really find out is to go. Right? I'm not there, like checking off each run club or things of that sort. However, though, in the near future, I will have a solution though. So the solution is we're launching a nonprofit arm for the Slow F Run Club. And once we get that nonprofit arm set up, we will be allowing individuals to apply to launch their own Slow F Run club in their particular neighborhood, city, or wherever you have it. And there will be strict guidelines that they will have to follow if they want to use the Slow F Run Club name and have clubs to help support people.
And how does a run club work just in general? So you meet on Saturdays, you show up at 9 o'clock, you run for an hour, and then you guys go to group chat, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it really depends, man. Like there's various different run clubs. So you have like the social club, right? That just gets together, talk about running, may go for like a little fun run. And then you have that on one side of the spectrum. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have clubs who are like people who are training to be elite runners, who want to, for example, make the Olympic trials, or try to train for the Olympics as well. So you have those types of clubs as well, and you have anything in between. So you can find like a club that's like, hey, we are chill, we're running to the bar, or like we're running to wherever else, and like this is where we have fun at and just socialize or like socialize. And then you on the other side, you have people that's like, yo, I'm an elite runner and I'm trying to be the best of the best.
Do you need a club if you're starting off? You've never done it before. Do you recommend someone joining a club?
Um, as an owner of a club, as an owner of a club, my answer is yes. But what I will say is that having a club or having a community of people that gets you, who've already been through the journey that you're trying to embark on, helps lower the barrier entry into somebody's running journey. So is it necessary? Not necessarily, but like, do you want to go further? Do you want to expedite your learning throughout this process quicker? Then yes, you want to be a part of a club, or at least have a coach.
Because I feel like on one hand, people may use that as an excuse to let themselves off the hook. Oh, there's no clubs nearby. Oh, I don't have a coach. I can't afford this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to
Yeah.
wait. But on the other hand, like you said, once you had, look, I've run before. I've never run with a club. I ran with a couple of friends, but I know that once you have some experience under your belt, if you want to take it seriously and go further, absolutely, a club, peers, coaches, and stuff can definitely take you there. Because I'm the guy that used to pick shoes based on what they look like,
Yeah.
not on how technically it fit on my running gait and all of this kind of stuff.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that I would just completely agree on, is that, do you necessarily need it? No, because I didn't have it. I had to learn everything the hard way myself. And I think it's facing those adversities that got me where I'm at right now to be able to talk to you. But for other individuals, is really this: like, if you are thinking about trying to run and you don't know what to do, pick a destination. Do you have light poles that you can count on, right? So run from one light pole and then walk for two light poles, and to repeat. If it's not a light pole, is it a fire hydrant? Run from one fire hydrant to the next one. If it's not that, is it a car or something else, right? Pick a small interval and do that, and then slowly go a little bit further.
Or even a local park where they have a
Yeah.
little path that goes around it. You can sometimes Google that and find out exactly how long that path is. And then you can sort of pace yourself. Oh, I'm going to do half of that today, or I'm going to do, a quarter of that. And I'm going to work up to doing the whole path, jogging around the whole path within a month or a couple months or something like that. Just taking it gradually.
Right. I would say the hard part, and this is where mindset comes in, is that consistency is not sexy. you know, for most people, it's one of those things, or for the people that I train, it's more of those things that like helping them bear with themselves with the boredom of doing something consistently. Because consistency is not sexy. Doing the same thing over and over again, and going a little bit further and further is not the sexiest thing, but it's the thing that's needed to be done in order to get people to their goals.
Talk about your experience with it, with the runner's high, because I've experienced that, and I didn't know if it was real or not, but it absolutely is real, and it is addicting. When you start feeling that high, I mean, you definitely hit your wall, so you get the cramps and everything in the beginning, but then at the end, you always have the high. So, what was your What was your experience with that runner's high?
Oh man, it's an amazing feeling. Better than any drug that I've ever had.
Mm.
I haven't had an ayahuasca though. I heard that might be a trip, um, but going through that runner's high is one of the things that like keep people going, right? I always tell people that the first quarter mile, the first half mile is usually the hardest, right? Because it's one of those things of like, I don't want to do this. You mentally in your head, but eventually you catch flow. And that's pretty much what runner's high is that you are now in flow of running. Your mind is no longer talking to itself. And like, it's literally you, your music, or like listening to your heart rate and just the music that your body makes as you're moving throughout the world.
I wrote a note down because I read your book, and we were supposed to do this interview a couple of weeks ago, but then we had some technical difficulties. So I have all my notes, and this note, I don't remember the reference for it, but it says a song, "Send Me, I'll Go." What is that? What does that mean? What is that referencing?
The Canton spirituals, man. So "Send Me I Go" is a song that my mother used to play all day, every day as I was growing up. And in the book, I talk about that of, you need to have that "I'll go if I have to by myself" mentality. And that's
Mhm.
how the song goes. It's like, I'll go if I have to go by myself. And it runs down a list, like whether my mother don't go, my father, my brother, my sister, if they don't go, I'll still go if I have to by myself. And that's the same thing with running or anything else in life, right? I think that's the beautiful thing about like my book or just running in general is that it is definitely a metaphor for life.
So that's what you were talking about with consistency. Like you
Yeah.
can't depend on your fair weather friends saying they're going to run with you. And because a lot of times, people will come up with all kinds of excuses
Yeah.
about why they can't do it. And you have to really commit for yourself
Yeah.
to whatever your schedule, your running schedule, or whatever your exercise schedule is. Cause I feel like it transcends just running and just about movement. It's just
Yeah.
about movement. It's about being outside. It's about being connected to something bigger than yourself. And what you're my impression, my interpretation is what you're running towards is your potential. That's what you're
Mhm.
running towards. And running is just a means to that end, right? Because you're running away from your status quo. And we all have a version of that, right? Something that we don't like about where we are in life. Maybe it's our job, maybe it's our health, maybe it's our relationships, maybe it's our spiritual connection, and we want something a little bit more expansive than that. And it's always going to require some degree of saying no to the status quo and some degree of saying, yes, I'll go, send me, I'll go, even if I have to
Exactly.
go by myself. Because
And
you're going to go by yourself. That's just the way it is.
exactly. Like there has been multiple things throughout my life. Yes, running is the thing I'm about, but like learning about business, writing this book, whatever, right? There has been many times where I'll reach out to a friend and say, hey, I want to get into investing. Like I'm about to go on this journey and learn how to invest. Like, you want to do this with me? And like, I don't know, excuses. And if I just sit there and wait on them to like get on board, they're going to flake out on me. So I don't want anybody in my team or anybody that's in my circle when I'm trying to do something and them be like, I don't know, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, screw it. I got to do this by myself then. And then I already know what's going to happen. Like, cause it has happened multiple times. What's going to happen is those people are going to come back and be like, hey man, like, dang, I wish I would have did that with you because I'll be right there with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I'm like, well, you can still come on, like, come on the journey. I can teach you. And they're like, nah, I don't want to hold you back. You too far along. So it's always going to be people in your life that's going to have that mentality. And you got to be able to go by yourself. You got to be able to, go through the fire, figure out how to figure this life stuff out by yourself. Because when it's all said and done, like you're the only thing that's going to be able to get you to move forward. It's not the things that people see that counts. It's the things that when nobody sees that counts the most. And that's what going, send me, I'll go by myself if I have to means to me.
I would even go so far as to say 99% of people are just full of excuses, right?
Yeah.
The men and women of action are so so rare, and usually, you know, they're busy doing their own thing because they're having to go by themselves down whatever path that they're on. So in order to really solidify change, it's easy to start down the path. I feel like, you know, you get the wave of motivation, it's New Year's, whatever,
Right,
you know,
right.
you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. But when you get 3-4 weeks down the line and that motivation starts to wane, which it always does 100% of the time because life gets busy, you have to understand that you're going to have to do this, you know, you're going to have to do this on your own. And so what I love about what your approach is, you know, you do a great job of managing the expectation of, hey, you don't have to run a marathon in 6 months. You can take a year and a half and prepare for it. You can start with a 5K. You can run slow as F, you know, slow AF, and 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 just take the tortoise approach, which is your icon on your
Yeah.
club. Take the tortoise approach as opposed to the hare approach. So I love that you've incorporated all of that into your philosophy, and you're helping people, you know, find a very gradual on ramp to whatever sort of transformation that they ultimately want to experience.
Right.
Now, something I want to ask you about, which you also mentioned in your book, that I found really interesting. Again, you're coming from Men's Warehouse. You're
Mhm.
coming from that conversation, and guys, you have to go back and listen to the first, because you've been bullied and trolled your whole freaking
Yeah.
life, as you said. That was just one instance in like maybe a dozen ones that, you know, are just as intense. Starting with being called titty boy in front of all of your classmates when you were like 8 years old. But you would think that achieving that milestone, you know, running your first marathon would be a moment of just, you know, a peak experience in your life. And you said you were in a bathtub crying and depressed after that. So talk about that. What was that about?
Oh man, like that was, like I said, that experience is by far the amazing experience and the hard experience to go through at the same time. It's the notion of putting so much into this one goal, not necessarily know you're going to make it, and you do it, and then you look up and you're like, I don't have anything else to look forward to.
Mhm.
So that's what it was for me. Like the doctor called me fat, and then I took 18 months of my life of like, I'm going to prove this doctor wrong. I'm going to run this marathon. And like that's the only thing that my sights were set on. And then do it and get sad and depressed. And going through therapy, one of the things that I found out is that most professional athletes, like people, Olympic athletes, they have the same thing happen, right? They do all this training to get to the Olympics, they win the gold medal, and they get sad and depressed because they like there's nothing else to in their eyes to look forward to. Like they
Mhm.
did the pinnacle. And the same happened to me in my own life is that I didn't have nothing else to look forward to. Like I spent all this time doing this, thinking about this, trying to figure out how to get better, thinking about what I'm going to do once this happened. Like, am I going to write a letter to the doctor? Am I going to throw the medal at him? Like all this stuff, right? And then when it's all said and done, like I'm in the bathtub crying, thinking to myself, like, this shit is over.
So what could you have in hindsight now,
Yeah.
thinking back on it, what would you have done? What could you have done differently?
So hindsight, and I talk about this in the book, right? Is you need three things in your life, right? You need values. Values is like a compass, right? It tells you the direction, but it does not give you a destination, right? You need goals. Goals are the destination, right? And then you need habits. Habits are the little small steps along the way that helps you get to your goals, right? So when you think about that, when you add all three of those together, you have this kind of trifecta of like, you have your values as this unattainable thing. You want to be a good father, right? There's not one thing that you can do that's there that you can check off, be like, yep, good father, right? It's a combination of all of these things. And then people don't necessarily tell you about this until you're dead. Like, dang, Light was a good father, right? He really supported them kids. Little Johnny acted up, and Light straight setting them straight, right? It's these actions that you do that culminates to that specific title. And then you have your goals, right? And the cool thing about values is that you can have as many goals as possible. So I was focused mainly on that one particular goal, and not backing out and looking at, well, what is my value? What do I value in running? Like, what about running? What about this journey that I really love, and not thinking about that one doctor experience, right? And that's where I kind of came up with this mission for me is, first it was, I just want to run and be happy, and I'm gonna run regardless of whatever weather I am, right? I just want to be able to be physically active, right? And that has kind of transcended as well to, I want to be able to aspire 1 million people to start running with my journey.
Mm.
So now, like, yes, that's a huge unattainable thing. I don't know if I'll ever be able to accomplish that, right? In my given life. But that's something that I can go to, and it can be that driving force to say, okay, the things that I'm doing needs to be able to go towards those particular things.
Well, also, what did you notice about your health? How did your health change? How did your lifestyle choices change? I don't know if you were drinking or not before then, but did that affect your that part of your life, food choices, anything like that? Was
Um,
running like a key domino in those ways?
More or less, right? So like, we can talk about it, right? Like I lost some weight. I lost
Hmm.
weight. Like I said, during that first bout, I lost about close to 90 pounds, right? Um, and then I gained it back and things of that sort, and went back and forth. But I think one of the things that really changed throughout my life was um everything I did was in the well, I'm gonna say everything. Mostly everything I did was in the light of, I'm doing this to be a better athlete. So if I'm training for a particular marathon, my friends going out on Saturday, want to hang out, I gotta run 20 miles, which means I gotta be up at 5 a.m. Which means I can't be drinking with y'all, because when I wake up, my body ain't processed all that alcohol, and now I'm out on the road, right? And
Hmm.
really understanding, like, it's the pain of not participating with my friends or like hanging out worse than the pain of what the consequence is in the next day. So those are one of the things that I'm typically weighing out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. As I heard someone say the other day, like he has a six pack, and he said the six pack is the story of all the pancakes I didn't eat. That's what it means, you know. I like pancakes as much as anyone else, but I like the idea of having a six pack more than I like the idea of the taste of whatever the thing is that I declined to eat, which is just a metaphor for there's always a sacrifice.
Right.
Whatever you want, you're gonna have to sacrifice something. You say you can have anything, but you can't have everything.
Exactly.
So you get to choose.
Yeah.
You get to choose. Um, Talk about your transition from Men's Warehouse. So,
Mhm.
you're starting to run, you're taking it seriously, uh, and you become this influencer. Maybe even before that was a thing, right? In running, which obviously, that's seems like a dream type of position. If you can make a living doing the thing that you love to do, how did you know it was time to transition away? What were some of those moments where you're like, okay, this is it? Or did you have to take a big leap of faith in quitting that job to start doing other things?
So there was a bunch of other things that happened in the midst of that. So yeah, I started this blog, started writing and things of that sort, but I also started to go to grad school. So I got my master's degree, and I think it was the summer where my advisor was like, "Hey, like, I know you're working at Men's Warehouse, but you really need to apply yourself here at school." And I'm like, "Well, I got to make money." And she was like, "Well, I can get you a fellowship." And that opportunity of like, do I want to focus more on in school and have more time to focus in on blogging more and running more, or do I want to continue to be at Men's Warehouse? And to me, the answer was right. It was easy. Like, I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go learn more. I'm gonna have more time, and I'm gonna run and blog more. And that's what I end up doing.
Mhm.
And then like throughout that, like thinking about that journey, like I didn't necessarily go full time like influencer until about years later, right? Um, I've had multiple jobs. I've, lived in different states and things of that sort, and kind of did it like pseudo part-time of being this influencer, but still having a full-time job along the way. And it wasn't until I want to say within the last 3 years that I've had it where I'm able to do it full time. And that was a huge leap of faith. So
Mhm.
I had this job, right? And I'm working there, and I recently had just started there. And I'm still running. They know I'm an influencer. I'm doing marketing for them. Um, and I run this marathon, I run New York City Marathon. But before I go to New York City, Adidas reached out to me and it's like, hey, we want to fly you to Portugal to do this campaign. Like, are you down? So I talked to my boss and I'm like, yay, like I'm going to Portugal. So I'm gonna need a 2 week vacation or a 2 week time off, 2 week PTO. And she's like, okay, go do your thing, yada, yada, yada. Get to Portugal. I was only supposed to be there for a couple days to do like a little cameo. First day come, I showed up and showed out, and like you can see people whispering in the background. So my handler comes to me and it's like, hey, they love you on camera and they want to like expand your role. So can you stay the whole week? So I'm calling back to my job and like, hey, like I know it's what been 2 weeks, but I'm gonna need some extra time. And she's like, go do your thing. You're in Portugal, enjoy it, right? Um, After we get done with that shoot, we wrapping up. My handler comes again and it's like, hey, there's another crew filming in Acropolis, I think what it's called, Athens, Greece. Um, they love what you're doing. Like, can you go there?
What were you doing that they love so much? You were just being a ham on the camera,
Yeah,
or what were you
look,
doing?
I was just a man, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, just being a ham though, like personality, right? Like where other people are like shying away from the camera, I'm giving personality, I'm giving wild gestures because I know like this is my moment. I'm in front of Adidas and like this can really change my life. So I show up and show out. I give them the best performance of Martinez that they can never get.
And this is
Um
after you had shot the nudes on Instagram of yourself.
No, before that.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Were you getting paid for this?
Yeah, I was paid. I was paid for
Okay.
it. Not much, but I was paid. Um, if I would have went to work, I probably would have got paid more. But uh, but I go to Greece and I'm there in Greece and them as well. I promise it was only going to be 2 days. Yada yada yada. Get to Greece. It rains for those 2 days, so came and do the shoot. So I'm calling my boss again. So it's like 3 weeks. Ended up being like 3.5 weeks. Maybe in 4 weeks. I think it was almost like a month because I came back and I was like jet lagged. And I was like, yo, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but I need more time. So let's call it a month. And I've only been at this job for less than 3 months. And my boss comes to me and it's like, hey, we need to talk. Um, I know you may not see it for yourself, but I see for you what's to come.
Mm.
So um we're we're gonna go part-time. Like, you can go part-time. We're not gonna make you a full-time employee. So we do that and then started working with Adidas some more and end up getting this Adidas contract. And during the same weekend, like my book contract comes through as well. So I'm talking to my boss and I'm like, yeah, got this stuff, yada, yada, yada. Like Adidas said they want to bring me on. I got my book stuff, but like I haven't got paid for any of this stuff. And she was like, I'm gonna stop you. Go bet on yourself. Consider this
Mm.
your 1 month notice. So she's like, this is your 1 month notice. Don't come to work. We're gonna pay you for that next month, but like I think you need time to like figure this out. So this is her pushing me off the nest, like pushing me out the nest. And the month comes, I'm working on a book, but I haven't got my first check yet. This Adidas contract didn't come through yet. So like I'm literally panicking the last week of this month. I'm like talking to my wife and being like, hey, like this money ain't came in yet. Like maybe I should email the boss and like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm dumb. Like, take me back. And I opened the email to send her an email to say, like, say all of this, and my Adidas contract was there.
Mm.
And I was like, I guess this is the universe telling me that this is it. So that was
Yeah.
about 3 or so years ago. I worked with Adidas for about 2 years, did this, wrote the book. And then as of recently, like I'm no longer with Adidas, you can thank Kanye for that. But it was an amazing journey and I haven't went back, right? I think I've been fortunate enough and had to hustle enough within that time to um, create other flows of income for me so I don't necessarily have to go back to a job.
Okay. So what year did you start the Mighty Network?
2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's been around for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And I started one in 2020. And when I register, so Mighty Networks is a platform. It's kind of like a Facebook group. You can run courses and stuff. And it's a way to kind of bring your community together online. This is not, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I've been using them for a few years now. But what was interesting is when I signed up, I didn't know anything about you. This is how I found out about you, by the way.
Yeah.
Slow AF was the gold standard. They were like, if you're setting it up, you want to set it up like these guys set it up. And so then I went in and looked at all of the, all the welcoming protocols that you guys had already set up. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really, really good stuff. And we ended up, loosely borrowing a lot of your language.
Don't worry, a lot of people usually borrow
our community, but it was very well organized. So I'm curious. Let's take us through how the genesis of this. How did you pick Mighty Networks? How did you know how to set it up so thoroughly? Who helped you with that? Just talk a little bit about that process.
So, I found out about a Mighty Networks when I was in like California working at a gym, man. I was working at a gym and I was talking to one of the clients and I was telling my story and they was like, yo, you should start a Mighty Network. And I'm like, what's this? And then like, I wasn't necessarily interested in it because I'm like, some people have always tried to sell me stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't want it, yada, yada, yada. And just so happened, I feel like our phones are listening to us. I get a video, a YouTube video suggestion of like somebody showing me like their Mighty Networks. And I think it was maybe Yoga with Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
And I seen her stuff and like just the possibilities of like, oh, this is how we run our courses, right? We got all this community and it hit me, right? All the things that I've been trying to do, like I had a Facebook group, it failed. I tried to run courses, it failed. And I just felt like I was swimming in the abyss of having too much to do amongst all of these things and keep my day job, right? And when I found out about Mighty and I was skeptical and I seen that video, I was like, oh, I see the light now. Like I seen the light. And just like you, I went through a lot of other people, communities as well to try to figure out like what's best for me. But one of the things that I took the approach of is, you know what, I want this thing to be a party. And when I was an undergrad, we used to throw like amazing parties, right? Ragers. And that's how I kind of thought about my Mighty Network was I want this thing to be a party. And I want people to feel like, yo, you want to be a part of this. And then I want people to be a part of this and then go out into the world and be like, yo, you missed that party Martinus threw. You need to be at the next one. So that was the more or less the approach I took. And then understanding my population and the people I've worked with on the internet, sometimes you got to like, I don't want to say dumb it down, but you got to give them the breadcrumbs. Like you got to lead them in the things that you want them to do. So that's why my stuff is a little bit more thorough than somebody else's, because I understand that it's a new platform. Somebody might not necessarily get it. And then they get there and be like, I don't know what to do. This is dumb. I quit. And that's the same thing with a party, right? You come to a party And you get there, you don't know nobody, nobody's welcoming you, you don't know who to say hi to, and you like, man, this party whack. I'm gone, right? But for me, in my parties, I'm like, no, we got people at the door welcoming you. Yo, what you doing? Who you work with? What you doing? Like, let me try to link you up with somebody, yada, yada, yada. And that's the same approach I take with my communities as well.
Did you set it up yourself or did
Yeah,
you have help?
I set it up myself.
How long did all that take?
Um, 4 months.
And how did you get 10,000 members? Like, talk about that process of, did you run ads or did you just
Oh no.
blog about it, or what was the?
Everything I got was like organic traffic, man. So um a couple things worked in my favor. One was the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, a lot of runners races got canceled, and they were sad, depressed, not necessarily knowing what to do. And the same was happening inside the Slow Your Run Club. So I started running these virtual races, man, and was getting like 4,000 people like around the internet to participate in this race. And I wouldn't call myself a marketing genius, but I'm a marketing genius. So everything that I do is slowly up everything, right? Slowly up over everything. So when people start to run those races, I just continue to funnel them to the Slow F Run Club. Hey, if you want these bonuses, you gotta go inside the club, you gotta go in here, you gotta go in there. And that helped me out. And then the outside press kind of got wind of it. So New York Times reached out. They did like a little profile on it. Got on the cover of Runner's World. That helped out as well. And I think like all of that momentum is where 10,000 followers or like 10,000 people inside the community come. But I haven't ran not one ad directly to the Slow F Run Club. I only run ads to things um that is timely, and I know that I'm gonna get like money from right then and there. So for example, my virtual races, like I ran ads to that because, you know, $45 a pop times 4,000 people, you can do the math on that. And I was like, well, I'm just going to continue to do this. So I will run tons of virtual races throughout the pandemic, sometimes 3 or 4 virtual races at once with various different medals and designs. And all of it was Slow F Run Club presents this race.
So for people listening to this who have been thinking about starting a community, what are some of the learnings that you acquired over the years of, you get people in the community, fine, but now what? How do you nurture them? How do you keep them engaged? How do you retain them?
So my best advice for this is like a party. You got to keep people entertained. What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do inside your community? Do you want them to talk? Do you want them to engage? Do you want them to just be lurkers, right? You need to have that goal in mind. Just like for your party or event, like, do you want to have a rager? All right. If you want to have a rager, do you got a banging DJ or a playlist or at least some alcohol to help loosen people up? Same thing with communities, right? Like, do you want people talking? Like, are you talking, right? Are you providing prompts and questions that people can answer questions on, right? Do you have other people in there who are also social elixirs to also participate inside that community as well? So I think for a lot of people think that having a community is going to run itself and you don't have to do nothing. And I wouldn't say all that. What I would say is that running the community is work. It's hard work, but once you get it up and running to where you want it to be, it can potentially run itself. But you got to do a lot of front end work to make sure that that community runs that way in order for you to like slowly back up. Just like a party, like you get there and there's only 2 or 3 people there. All right, like how am I gonna make this the best party ever for these 2 or 3 people?
So in the early days of the club, you were in there all day, every day,
All day, every day, answering every
commenting, responding.
commenting on everything.
Mhm. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Commenting on everything. My motto was never miss a handshake.
How do you know how to get help, when to get help, and who to select for that help?
I would say the first way, the first place to look for help is within the community.
Mhm.
There's always super users or like individuals who are using this thing almost more than you inside the community. And that's who I tagged first and reached out to them and say, like, hey, like, would you be a moderator? Like, I can't pay you, but I would love for you to be a part of this, right? Be amongst the community. Like, let's make this better. So I initially started there. I had 5 moderators that I didn't pay because I couldn't afford them. But they loved it so much and they loved the mission so much that they went even harder than I could. So they're commenting, they asking questions, they're up in there more than I am. And then at that point, I'm like, all right, like I can kind of ease back a little bit and continue to work on the community versus in the community. So I would say that's the first thing. Look for people or members inside the community. There's always some type of super user or somebody who supports what you're doing, and just ask them, hey, can you be a part of this? Like I can get you a t-shirt or whatever, but like, can you be a part of this? I want to know more about, how we can get you more into this thing, right? I want you to figure out, or I want you to be empowered to help me with what are the things that I need to improve inside this thing so I can actually do it. So that's what I used to do with my moderators. Every 2 weeks, we would meet and they would tell me what's going on. Hey, Martinez, like a lot of people are asking about this. And they agree, like, yeah, like that's a great idea. You should do that. And then what I do, okay, let me go do it.
Mm. Are you, and what's your role now in the community? How involved are you?
um, I'm involved.
You
I'm
go full
involved.
days without going in there?
Like
I'm asking from my own experience because I go in and out, man. It's like it's so much work that I just can't be in there some days, because I got other stuff going on. But I do recognize the importance of, you still have to show face and you still have to, get in there as much as you possibly can.
I would say this. It would appear that I'm in there every day.
Okay. You have people on your behalf in there.
But am I in there every day? Absolutely not. But it would
you put in
appear
the
that
time. You put in the time.
Yes.
You put in the, a couple of years of being in there all the time.
So one of the things that I do, even for my content wise, right? I do a lot of batch days. So and this is something that I recommend everybody do. It's batch day. So me and my team, we get together and we plan out almost three days worth of content. I mean, not days, but months worth of content. And I'll take a day and just record that stuff. So for like my Instagram, I got 2 Instagrams, right? I got the Slow Your Run Club Instagram and 300 Pounds of Running Instagram. I take a day and I record 40 pieces of content. And they schedule it. They'll respond to comments of like, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. But if they need like help on a specific comment of like somebody's asking this specific thing, like Martinez, this is the comment you need to jump in on, I'll jump in. But if there's comments like, hey, good job, they'll thumbs up it or just say thanks. They'll schedule all the other posts for me. So I just take that day, I schedule those 40 pieces of content, or like not even schedule, but like create those 40 pieces of content. And I'll have to think about it for another month and a half or 2 months. And the same thing is with the run club, right? We plan that stuff out. I have what I call like a journey of a runner, like the customer base, like what I want them to go through. And we recycle that every 3 or so months.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about assistants and team members.
Okay.
What have you learned about choosing someone who would be good to work with you? Because I'm sure you've had a bunch of trial and error, people that didn't work out. So what did you figure out about that?
Some of the things that I figured out about this is that for some of these assistants, they'll do whatever you tell them to do, but you have to tell them what to do.
They're
And
not going to be in there guessing and being self-starting.
and what I find out is those are the types of people I don't like to work with.
The people who just do what you say, you just do what you
Yes,
tell them to do, and nothing more,
right.
nothing less.
Yeah. So like those are not the type of people that I like to work with. Like I need
Hmm.
self-starters. I need people who have brains and ideas and who are willing to um challenge my thoughts
Hmm.
as assistants, right? I don't need people that's like, okay, you want me to do what? All right, I'm gonna do that. Hey Martinez, I'm done. Like, is there anything else? Like, no. I give them the authority to say, like, hey, like here's the budget and here's the extra budget. Like, come to me with stuff. And if you can't come to me with stuff, like I can go train anybody else to go do that one particular thing that you're doing. So that I won't say that doesn't make you valuable to me, but like it's hard when I'm this entrepreneur, I'm an author, I'm doing all this other stuff. I can't sit down and give you the time to be like, all right, um, what else would you like to do? What are the skills that you got? I need people who
Hmm.
are on my team that can think quick on their feet and also come to me and say, hey, Martinez, like, for example, I have an assistant and she's like, hey, Martinez, like, I see that sometimes your emails, like they get backed up or like, I know you get busy, so you don't check them as much. So how about this? Like, how about I'll put in this process where I'll check all of your emails and every day I'll give you a Word doc of all the emails people have said and with the responses that I think you should tell them, and then you can
Beautiful.
just go and check it, right? Like
Love
that's
that.
amazing,
Yeah.
right? That's amazing. And like those are the types of people that I necessarily need because I just don't have the time to like sit and ponder and be like, all right, Susie, like what else should we give you? I need some people
Yeah.
like, no, Martinez, I know you got the hours, I know you got the budget. Um, this is what I think I should be doing. And if it makes
That,
sense, do
mhm.
it. Okay.
That's exactly what I've discovered too. From working with assistants, there's basically two kinds of assistants. I call them they're worker bees.
Yeah.
Those are people who just do exactly what you tell them to do, nothing more, nothing less. And they're problem solvers, which is what you were talking about.
Yes.
Person looks at your email, notices a problem, and solves it,
Yeah.
and gives you the solution. And so they're oriented towards, how can I free up more time for Martinez? How can I help him do what he does the best, which is, envision things, create things, implement things, and then I can just be the support for that instead of having him stop his train of thought to think about how I can solve this problem and then tell me exactly how to do it from A to Z.
Because that's usually like when you're dealing with like newer assistants or when you first getting started out, like that's usually what it is. All right, we're gonna do 10 hours a week. Cool. What do you want me to do? Fuck. I gotta pay you. I gotta pay you and tell you what to do. Like, damn. Versus somebody that comes in, understands the system more and then be able to figure out the problems that you're having, right? And like those are the types of people that I love to work with and like support and encourage for them as well, right? Is that like if I win, like you're on, this is how I try to tell people, you're on the bottom floor of like the next Tony Robbins, the next
Mhm.
Les Brown, the next Eric Thomas, right? I'm there. In my head, I'm already there. I may not have caught up money wise, but like that's where I'm going. You're at the bottom level with me. So if you stick around and if we can make this work, like just imagine like where we at 5 years from now when I'm actually that and like you there. I'm gonna show most loyalty to you. So that's more or less
So
how I try to explain to people.
for the listener who agrees with this and says, "Okay, I want someone who's a problem solver as well." How do you vet for a problem solver? Do you have to hire them first? Is there a way to figure it out before you hire them?
um, you gotta give problem solving questions.
Hmm.
So for example, this is how I found my best social media manager. And I found this from when I used to work for Yelp. So at Yelp, when I applied for Yelp as like one of the social media people, one of the things they ask you to do is give you scenarios of questions you need to answer that you might need to answer on social media. So, for example, if you're looking for social media answer, like comment to this comment, right, or this post, right, or like write a caption for this picture. So I just give them a picture, write a caption for it. Give me your best caption. You know, a customer sends this DM. What is the things that you're going to do to make sure that this gets situated? So when you start asking situational questions, you can start to figure out who are the problem solvers and who are the people who are not problem solvers, right? In the answers. Like that is blatant. So when you like give me a caption for this picture and they give you like some basic like inspirational stuff or a quote, and you like, nah, like that's not what I was looking for, gone. Versus somebody that's like, oh, like the person I got now, she's like, oh, I looked at some of your other posts. I noticed that, you know, you kind of go deep in the spectrum. So like, this is the inspective post that I think you would write. And I'm like, out of here. You the one. So that's all I would say is that you have to give them situational questions of things that you're going through and the things that you're struggling through and see how they answer them. And you should, based off those answers, you'll know if that person is a problem solver or a worker bee.
Brilliant. I love that. I've done something similar too. And it's also helpful to see how quickly they can come up with that solution. Because some people are problem solvers, but it takes them 3 times longer than it would take someone else to come up with that same solution. So you have to like monitor the timing as well. And what I've done in the past was I put together like say 10 questions and I say, you only have, 5 hours to come up with solutions for these 10 questions. And you're not going to be able to finish all of them. So it's a way for me to see what they do best because they're all different skill sets. Each one of those questions addresses a different skill set. So I love that. Love that solution.
So that, and then with the advent of ChatGTP, I think one of the things that people fail to realize is that shit, I still don't have time. And like understanding prompts and like prompt engineering still takes a lot of time. So when ChatGTP 2 came out, the person who runs my social media, she's like, hey, I'm toying around with it. I'm figuring out this prompt stuff. Like, this is course I want to buy. I'm like, great, here's the money for the course. And like, that comes to that problem solving. So now she's like, hey, like, just want to let you know, using ChatGTP on some of these comments or some of these captions, like, let me know what you think. But I'm still training it to make sure like it sounds like your voice. But that's still a thing where you still have a representative who's doing the thing for you because you still don't have the time and it's quicker. So then, they're then able to do other things that may be on the list that you couldn't get to because they're spending time doing some of that manual, like brain thinking labor type of thing.
So let's talk about the process of the book. And conventionally speaking, people will get an agent, they'll write a proposal, the agent will shop the proposal to publishers. You'll find the publishers will bid for opportunity to publish your book, give you an advance, blah blah blah. Did you go down that traditional path or was your path a bit different?
More or less the same path. It's just certain things came out in various different ways. So for example, my agent, most people, they have to like have a writing assignment or like a writing sample and then send it to shop agents, right? I found this agent from a friend of a friend, right? I had a friend that was writing this book and she was like, hey, I'm gonna give you X amount of dollars to write the foreword for it. And I was like, all right, like I was thinking in my head, like I would have just did it for the love, but if you're gonna pay me, cool. And then it came out that they didn't have the budget that they thought had for it. So she was like, I'm indebted to you, whatever favor you need, just let me know. And I was like, I need access. Like introduce me to your editors, agents, whatever. And she was like, you know what? I have an agent for you. I worked with her in the past. She didn't work out for me, but it was because some other things. I don't want you to think like she's a bad agent. She's an amazing agent. But I think she'll be the agent for you. I met with her, did not meet any other agents, talked to a couple of her current clients. and we've been in love land. From that point on, yes, wrote a book proposal. Typically, your agents might have other proposals from other authors that they've worked with that you can use. Did that, and then I would say that's the beautiful part of the agent is that, or my particular agent was, she was an editor at some of the big five, big four. I don't know how many big it is. They keep changing, right? But she was a editor at some of these bigger publishing companies. So she had ends. So yeah, like they bid it. There was a bidding war, and then I ended up getting a book deal.
Mm.
And all of this happened within like the longest thing was like me writing a proposal. But from the point of when my agent put the book proposal out there and bidding, like, and when I got a book deal, 4 days.
Beautiful. And just a little bit about your process of writing, because this was your first book. So
Yes.
how many words was in your contract?
75,000, between 75,000 and 80,000 words.
So that's like about what, a 300 page, 350?
Yeah, somewhere around there. I think it ended up being around 256 when it was all said and done.
But you
Yeah.
got to write probably
Yeah.
100 something thousand in order to get it to
Yeah.
75,000. So
Yeah.
how did you decide to approach that? And why did you decide to write a book about the process of running as opposed to just like say a memoir or, just telling your story?
So I had a heart to heart with my agent, and she's very good at like, she's like the author whisperer, as I like to call it. So she was like, Martinus, I know you want to write this memoir, and I think you should write a memoir. I just don't think now is the time to write a memoir. And she was like, here's why. The world don't know you like that. Like, you don't have a big time name. Like, people don't know you like David Goggins. You don't have the connections of big friends of Tony Robbins or all these other like famous people that you can like ride on the coattails of. So, what I think you should do is write a how-to manual and really get a foothold in the realm of running. You can add some motivational stuff that you might want to add to it. But if you go that route, I promise you, it's going to be a lot more rewarding than you doing a memoir. No one knows you, and then it flops.
Mhm.
And then from there, nobody wants to touch you. So I really listened to, and she's like, it's your choice, but this is what I really think for you. And I had a conversation. I did my own research. I started looking at like running books and things of that sort and what was out there. And when it was all said and done, I was like, damn, she's right. Like, there hasn't been a new how-to running manual in a while. I can add my own perspective on it. And there still will be time for a memoir. So when I think about this year, when my book came out, there has been like 4 running memoirs that has all came out this year, 4 or 5 of them. So I can imagine like trying to fight with them, like these other individuals who are like elite Olympians who've like put their memoir. And with the pandemic, like everybody's stuff is all coming out at the same time. So like now, like all of these memoirs have came out on running. And I could imagine that if I went that memoir route, like I'll be competing with some of these elite athletes who've
Mhm.
told their story versus now, like it's a how-to manual with some memoir-esque elements to it. People get what they need from it, but they also see how much more I can do.
And as you were writing, who do you have in mind as the audience?
The Martinus that started running when he was in 2012.
Mhm.
I wrote the book that I wish I would have had when I first started running. So that was the process.
What did you find surprisingly difficult about writing? And maybe surprisingly easy?
Um, what I found surprisingly difficult was the editing process, editing your own words. And, for most people who aren't writers, like you try to edit and write at the same time. And like that
Mhm.
was one of my biggest downfalls. I think what was easy or easier was like the process that I've created for myself to start writing. So I'm a very methodical guy. Um, I did the math. All right, 75,000 words. I got 18 months to write this thing. All right, let's really break this down. I'll probably write anywhere between 3 to 4 times a week. How many words do I actually need to write in this amount of time to actually get to 75,000 words? And when I did the math, it came up to about like 192 words that I had to write a day. So if I wrote 192 words for 3 to 4 days a week, I would get to 80,000 words or 75,000 words. So I thought to myself, all right, like, let's do that. Knowing that, like, 192 words is like 3 or 4 sentences. So if I sat down and just did that and set my timer for 2 to 3 hours and just sit there and just write consistently, um, like I would some days have 4,000 words. Some days I banged out a whole chapter. And some days I didn't, but it was the consistency part of it. And then one of the things that I also did was disconnect my laptop from the internet, so that I can't go surf anywhere. And I told myself I just got to keep writing, or I just got to keep typing. So when I didn't have words to say, I would literally write, "This is dumb." So imagine being on the computer and like not necessarily know what you're going to say, and it's literally like, "This is dumb. This is dumb. This is dumb." And eventually, it's like, you know, don't get off the bus. Remember when bus driver told me to like get on this bus, yada yada yada, and then I can't think of nothing else. And then it's like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And then I go back to like thinking about that story of like, all right, how can I span this out? And then I'll write a little bit more on that, and then I'll run out of like thoughts, and then I'll just go back to this is dumb. And at the end of the day, I'll select all, find this is dumb, delete, and then I'll have a whole draft of for that particular day.
Love that. I've also found that sometimes just going through my camera roll can help to trigger certain memories
Oh, that's a good
from,
one.
events. And but I love the this is dumb approach too, and then deleting it all, and then you're just left with what you have. Is
Yeah.
there a coffee shop out there that where they saw you in there, you working on your computer, nobody really knew what you were doing, but you wrote a significant part of your book?
Not necessarily, man. I did everything in my home office.
Okay,
So I
stay
did every,
focused.
yeah, I did everything in the home office. Another thing that I did that I don't think most authors know to do is like I hired my own editor. So I took some of my money, I found an outside editor, and before I sent like my draft to the publisher, I had that initial editor go through it. So we would workshop it together. Like I had her on a retainer, and like we would workshop it together like every 2 to 3 weeks. Like I'll send her everything I had for those 2 week span. She'll edit it, and then like she'll sit down with me and be like, "Hey, like this is great, but I think you need to do this," or like, "You know what I was looking for this book, or like for this chapter, but you didn't tell me was X, Y, and Z. Like you left me flying in the air." You know, one of the things she always tell me is that, "Martinus, you need to land the plane, man. Like you tell these amazing stories, but you're not landing the plane, man. You got to bring me back down with a conclusion or something." So
Mm.
being able to go through that process made the other process, the of sending it to the publisher and going through all of the edits with the publisher, a whole lot easier.
Beautiful, man. Well, I think this is a good place to end it. Thank you so much for sharing your process. I know a lot of times we don't talk as much about our process. It's just like highlight, highlight. Oh, I got a book. Oh, I got a community, but nobody really knows how it all came together. So
Yeah.
this conversation for me is very special to hear the behind the scenes of how these things came together, because I think it's so relatable, and that people, out there who may have some ideas or may have a small community can now have some next steps in their mind on how to grow that into something a little bit more substantial. So the book comes out June 6th,
Yeah.
2023. And definitely go out and check that out, especially if you have any interest in moving your body, coming off the couch. It's written for people who are on the couch, who want to come off the couch and start doing something. And it takes you through the whole process A to Z. And then I guess next steps would also be to check out the Slow AF Run Club community online, and follow you on social media. And what else you got going on, man? You got an album coming out. What else is going
I
on
got
over there?
a 25 city book tour
No
that we got going.
way.
Yeah, man. 25
That's
cities, man.
huge. That
Yes.
that's a lot of work.
Yes. And I planned that myself. So I got 25 city book tour that I planned
Wow.
myself. We got that going on. And then I'm working on a nonprofit, the Slow Your Front Club Foundation. That's something that we're working on as well.
Where does the book tour kick off?
New York City, June 5th. And then June 6th, I'm going to be at Get More in America. And then from there, Poughkeepsie, New York.
When are you in LA?
I don't think I'm in LA yet. I haven't found a place in LA yet.
Okay, so are you still looking for venues?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if someone has a venue, what do they do? What email do they reach out to?
They hit me at hello@slowafrunclub.com. slowafrunclub.com.
And what's your ideal venue?
I would love a venue that we can bring. I would love a venue that we can bring runners to. So somewhere that's accessible to a trail, or somewhere that we can like meet, go for a run, and then come on back and do like the speaking component of it.
Okay, it doesn't have to necessarily be Black owned or anything like that. Just some place close to a trail.
Yes.
I mean, ideally, if it's minority owned, that's kind of interesting. And cool.
If it's Black owned, that'd be extra. Like,
but it's not a deal breaker. It's not.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, congratulations on everything you're doing. And we still haven't met in person, so hopefully that'll happen soon as well at some point.
We got to make it happen.
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.